Welcome to today's session. Thank you so much for investing your time with us for our panel discussion series today. We are kicking off Business Week, which is always exciting. Please note that this session will be recorded and available on our website later this week. So some of you are joining live. Others I know will join asynchronously later when they watch it. And of course, those who are live are welcome. If it's just that awesome, you're welcome to watch it again once it is posted. So watch for that on the website. I'm Dr. Cynthia St. John. I am a full-time faculty member in the management department of UTA's College of Business. I'm what's called a professor of practice, which means I spent the bulk of my career in the business world, including as an executive leader. And so therefore I strive to bring this experience into the classroom. And I am joined today and privileged to be joined today by other exceptional and accomplished leaders. And so we're going to have a wonderful panel discussion that is called, What Does It Mean to Be a Transformational Leader? Our panel includes Faber Lee, who is the Director of Business Development of EisnerAmper. If you want to give a wave, Faber. And EisnerAmper also happens to be the sponsor for this year's Business Leadership Week, so thank you so much for that. We have Mr. Sam Mahrouq, President and CEO of MEI Group. Sam, if you want to give a wave. And we also have Donna Howard joining us. She is the CHRO of PhyNet Dermatology, LLC. Donna, if you'd like to give a wave. So I'm excited about today's panel. Hope you are also. Our goal is that all participants come away with a fresh perspective or a new strategy or an innovative idea that you can apply to be more successful in your business or your career search. The format for today's event, just to give you a high-level overview, is we're going to begin with a few questions that have been prepared to ask our panelists and start discussing this topic of leadership, and in particular, transformational leadership. So we'll start there, and that'll be about 45 minutes of our time, so about a half of our time. And this will help highlight some high-level themes and ideas that we should be thinking about. However, beyond that, we want to make sure that we are also tailoring it to your needs and your interests. So we will then use our remaining time to open it up for questions that you can submit using the chat feature or by raising your hand. When we get to that portion, you can just raise your hand live, or you can put it in the chat. If we run out of time today before all questions have been answered, if there are some that went into the chat that we've not been able to address, please rest assured that we will post the answers to your submitted questions on chat after the conclusion of today's event. So you'll still get all questions answered. All right, sound good? Great. Let us begin with our panel questions. And so our first one that I'd like to start the panel off with and ask, let's see, Sam, if you can take this one first, and then we'll hear from Lee and Faber and Donna as well, so that all three of you are responding to each question. But Sam, if you can start us off with, what is your definition of leadership, and how has it potentially, how was it formed, and how might it have transformed even over time? So what's your definition of leadership, and how is it formed, and how is it transformed?
Good morning, Cynthia. The fellows here and to the rest of the attendee. Leadership to me is a person, is the ability for a person to understand the big picture of a business and to be able to translate that big picture into a smaller yet understandable blocks of information to different level and different people within that organization in order to keep all on the same understanding and the same goal. Everybody within an organization, at least in mine, they're within sales, operation, finance. So while they're in different lanes, yet we're in the same business. So to be able to understand, to make sure that they all understand their contribution to the big picture, and their ability to move the needle together so we can all accomplish the bigger goal for the organization. One of the biggest issues to be able also to connect the dots between the difference of these verticals within an organization. So sometimes while everybody understands their role, there's a little disconnects to be able to understand these little disconnects, the nuances, and connect the dots to make sure everybody moves at the same speed. Should be able to set clarity on the goals, clarity on how to achieve these goals, and also be able to hold people accountable of the result of their actions. So that's, in a nutshell, what leadership is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I use that term, kind of connect the dots, a lot. I think in that way too of leadership. How about Favor or Donna? Who'd like to go next?
I'll jump in then. Good morning or good afternoon. Again, Donna Howard. When I think of the definition of leadership, what I think of is someone who inspires others to follow because they want to, not because they have to. And oftentimes we've probably had leaders who we did what they told us to do because we knew that's what they wanted us to do, but we may not have truly embraced their thoughts or their actions or to understand the why. So to me, a true leader is inspirational, and they can become that in several different ways, which I know we're going to be talking about during our time today. And when I think about how it's transformed, things that I have learned along the way is I have learned to listen more. A true leader will take time to understand the big picture, just like Sam was talking about, to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish from a larger perspective, but then also listen to your staff. If you listen to what they have to say, then oftentimes you as a leader are going to learn more than you might have otherwise. And along with that, taking the time to build the relationships. A leader, and I've learned to do this too. I've taken time. Oftentimes I tend to try to get things done very quickly and say, okay, we need to get this done. But at the same time, if you develop those relationships, that will lead to, in theory, them wanting to be part of your team and to truly follow your lead because you care about them. Along with that, I have learned as a leader, you have to learn to delegate, not manage, but to lead. And those are two different things by definition and from a practical standpoint. So to delegate to them, and then they become part of what it is you're trying to accomplish from that bigger picture standpoint. This also allows them to continue to grow and to learn. And by doing that as a leader, you also show that you really care about them, both professionally and personally, that you care about them learning and you care about them continuing to grow. And then by doing that, they have more, a greater understanding of what's trying to be accomplished. And therefore they feel like that they too are helping to move the needle. And then along with that, the final item that I would say in terms of learning to be a transformational leader is to ask them what they recommend. This also gives you an idea to know whether or not you as a leader, if you have truly helped them to understand what you're trying to accomplish from the 10,000 foot level down to the 5,000, down to the 10-foot level. And then that way you make sure that everyone is focused on the right thing and you're focused together.
Awesome. Thank you. Favor.
It's amazing because we haven't had like a pre-huddle session for this, but it seems like we're kind of saying the same thing. I was just amazed because Sam mentioned about the big picture, the vision, I call. And then Donna, you mentioned about the inspiration, right? Inspiring other people. And I truly feel like the leadership is that, right? Being able to clearly see the vision and inspiring others, not dragging them along, but you're inspiring them to see the same vision and leading them towards the common goal. I truly feel like that's a true leadership. And then you also, Cynthia, asked about how is it formed and transformed. I believe it's a mixture of nature and nurture. I think there are people who are given natural talents to become a natural leader. Ever since they were young, they were naturally in a leadership position. Even within the sports team, maybe they're 5-year-old doing soccer. There are always those kids who are taking the leadership roles. So I think a lot of it is natural part too. But I think the nurture part comes along where you could really develop yourself throughout. And when we say transformation, a lot of times we think big stuff coming and just total disruption and so forth. But I feel like transformation leadership is every day. Every day you become a better version of yourself, whether that's you or in your team or the company itself or everything all around. I think that's the real transformation that makes a difference, the everyday portion of it.
Fantastic. Thank you all. And if any of my students happen to be on this, I'm betting you heard lots of common things there. So it's wonderful to hear this reinforced because we talk about it from the Cotter definition and from, Bass in terms of transformational leadership and the 4 I's, but you all are hearing it from these responses. So awesome. Thank you guys. Let's move on to our next question, which is going to be, I'd like you to describe your particular leadership style and how you lead others. So your particular leadership style and how you lead others. Donna, let's start with you this time.
Thank you, Cynthia. One of the things that I learned from someone a long time ago that I have continued to embrace is the idea of being a servant leader and focused on what I would say the inverted organizational chart. So rather than my being at the top, I'm at the bottom, and I am there to serve others, and I'm there to serve my team. One thing that I try to do whenever I've met with one of them is at the end of our conversations to say, what can I do for you? And I attempt to, I'm not going to say I always do, but I attempt to instill that in my team saying, we are customers to each other. We have customers internally. We have customers externally. That then leads to a different type of interaction and being a leader. One of the things that Favor said reminded me that we have leaders in official leadership roles, but we also have what I call the informal leaders. So that's that. When Favor made a couple of comments, I remember that because growing up, you have the people that may not be in an official capacity as a leader, but they're natural leaders, and that makes a difference. The other thing that I think has impacted me as a leader is I am very passionate about what I do. I love being in HR. I love being able to make a difference from a business standpoint based on what the human capital side does. And so by doing that, by my making a difference, then as a team member, then I believe that I can influence the other team members to truly be leaders as well. Another item is I take ownership. I'm not afraid to say when I made a mistake or I'm misunderstood, because that also shows to the team a side of humility and also being accountable. On the flip side, I also allow my team members to make mistakes without there being a negative ramification. We're all human, and I believe that we always learn from our mistakes. I truly do believe that. Another element that I believe impacts me is I want to be empathetic and to get to know people as people, not just as one of my employees, but as a person, because there's not a definite line between personal life and professional life. We say leave your baggage at the door, but that's not always easy to do. And to understand maybe what someone is going through from a personal standpoint and how it could impact them professionally, when they know that you truly care, I get so much back in return because they know that I trust them. I know that they'll do what they need to do. And from a leadership role, I'm letting them, take ownership and know at the end of the day, we all have a job to get done. But at the same time, I'm also going to be mindful of what may be impacting their ability to get something done. And the last thing is I'm very inquisitive. And I always ask my staff, what do you think, or what else is going on? Because I've also told them, if I'm getting ready to walk off the cliff with someone, please tell me, because I may not know what all could impact a decision. And I rely on them very heavily, so they know that we are working together as a team. And yes, I may be in that official leadership role, but I look at them as all being leaders as well.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so much is relationship based, isn't it?
It is, Cynthia.
All right, how about others?
Well, I'll take it from here. My style of leadership is to constantly sit with, at least with people who reports to me, which is, and I ask them to do the same with others, and people who report to me are executives in my organization, and always get them to focus and rise above the day-to-day clutter and the day-to-day work. A lot of times they tend to get very busy with being proactive to things and issues and problems, and their goal is, okay, you're going to handle that, but at the end of the day is to understand what caused these issues within these organizations. And almost when you have a problem, of course, the first thing I do is ask people what issues did they have, and listen to their challenges or problems, and always treat their problems not from a source of who should they blame, but what caused that issue, and how do we eliminate the root cause of what's causing this. You have to help people to constantly think strategic and not tactical, not to be constantly involved in the day-to-day work and the day-to-day activities. People have to be my leaders. I'm a leader. I'm leading a bunch of executives who have, in their own self, have to become leaders. And to become leader, you have to rise above the day-to-day and must think strategic. What's the big picture? What's the big goal? And obviously, like Donna said, always delegate and don't be constantly doing the work. You have to make sure that it's being done, that it's being done effectively, efficiently, that of course, make sure that your people are happy doing what they're doing, or at least they're not frustrated. That's really my style, is to meet with them and constantly keep them above the clutter.
Yeah, good approach. Thanks, Sam. Favor, how about you?
Yeah, actually, Donna hit a few of these where I aspire to be a servant leader. I think that's the number one, really, from my standpoint. When I think about my leadership style, there were two things that really popped out. One, empathetic leader. I think Donna mentioned that as well. Just being people, being able to understand others, what they're going through, just caring for one another. I think that's really, really important. I think as a leader, especially nowadays when there's so much things going on, just being able to just understand other people, what they're going through, and caring for them, I think that goes a long, long way. And then the second one, which is interesting, is cheerleader. So
Right.
my personality, my personal goal in my life is to bring sunshine to people around me. And I just feel like that
I love that.
positivity and just encouraging other people. There are many different ways where you encourage others, but one of it is just saying you did a really good job. If they did something, very detailed as far as what they did, how that impacted our team, and just recognizing them. Just being a cheerleader on a daily basis, I think that keeps the mood up. And Sam, you mentioned this, uplifting one another. So that's kind of my leadership style.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, we're going to shift just a little bit. So we've been talking about initially it was your definition of leadership and maybe how it was formed or transformed over time. And then most recently, we were just talking about.
We lost you.
I think I got muted somehow. All right, am I back to?
You're back.
Now?
You're
All
back.
right. So we started off with definitions of leadership, then kind of styles of leadership. Now, I'd like to ask about and have you reflect on and respond to, what do you think the most important decisions are that you make as a leader? What does that look like? And a favor, I'm going to have you go ahead and lead us off on this one, if you don't mind. So what do you think? What are the most important decisions you make as a leader?
Sure. Thanks, Cynthia. I think the the important decisions are usually around vision, right? Having a clear vision as a leader, and then also the people. I think those two are, most important ones that I could think of most recently that's related to. So when we talk vision, are we aligned? Are we going in the right direction? I mean, there's many different routes that you could get to a vision, a mission, but is that the best route? Right? When we turn ways, there's many different routes. There's the shortest route, there's the cheapest route without the tolls, or maybe there's the, no police section or whatever it is. Whatever direction you take, is that the direction where everyone's going towards with the same vision? I think that's one of the key decisions that we make as a leader a lot. And then when it comes to people, it could be such as, do we have the right people in the right seat? Are they challenged enough or maybe too much? Are they aligned with the vision? So a lot of it around the people, because we can't do this alone, right? Working as a team, being a leader means you have others around you where you come together as a team and for a greater goal. So how could we align this vision and people? That seems like a very big decision that we make around on a everyday basis.
Oh yeah, essential. Yeah, the
Mhm.
great way to kind of capture and highlight those two key elements. Sam, how about you?
It's funny. We really didn't paddle, but a lot of the answers are pretty much very similar, because the first thing I said is the team members. Who do I have in my team, and are they strategic enough? Do they understand the vision at the same level, and are they aligned together as a team? So it is, to me, the most important aspect of leadership is who are the team members, the level of understanding. The other thing I think I like to focus on is understand the strengths and weaknesses of the team members and figuring out what is their strength, so they can focus on that, and augment their weaknesses. If I hire a certain person that needs to be sales, but he's aggressive in sales, but he's not aggressive in let's just say service. You want to be able to remove that and create another position, which this is specifically what just actually did in our organization, where we divided sales into account management, meaning after you sell, just hand it over to a different group of people who are more of account that have more of a service-oriented personality. I guess what I was trying to tell you is not only understanding the team members, their strengths and weaknesses, but also understanding the weaknesses and the strength, and augmenting that weaknesses with other people that are strong in these attributes. But ultimately, the team members, to me, is the most important aspects of leadership.
Thank you.
And I would add to what both Favor and Sam have said. They're exactly right. We did not huddle, but at least at least you know that it gives some credibility to what we're saying.
It truly does. And by the way, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Check, check, check in terms of just alignment with what's like taught in the classroom relative to leadership and the different theories and approaches. So you guys are really living that out. So thank you. But continue on, Donna.
Of course. Well, when Sam said something about the right people, and that is so true. In fact, there just a quick example. We had someone. I had a talent acquisition manager who was just wonderful, and we had someone apply to a position we had open within our team. And unbeknownst to me, the talent manager said, I just don't think this is the right fit for you. But if something comes along that I think would be, then I'll call you. Well, she did. And we ended up hiring her in a different role, and she is just blossoming. And to me, that just illustrates what Sam was saying is, be sure that you have the right people in the positions. And Favor said the same thing, because when we all know that if we do something that we really enjoy, we're going to be good at it. Don't put me in a sales role. And don't make me look at spreadsheets all day. But if I have other strengths that I can really thrive, then I'm going to be very successful. And you want everyone to experience that. And because then it just makes for a stronger team. The other thing that I thought of too, in terms of important decisions, is I believe in doing what's fair. And yet that doesn't necessarily equate to something being equitable. So when you think about it, what's fair for someone may not be fair for someone else, or if you make everything equal, it may not be fair. So that's a tough that's a tough decision to make sometimes. But at the same time, you have to do what's right for the business. Number one, as a business person, that's what you have to do, and hopefully, then it's going to be right for the person. But that's something that I learned early on. And one other thing is, in making decisions, one thing that has driven me quite often is the values of the organization. It somewhat, because I had this situation occur where there were a couple of people that ended up getting let go. And it wasn't because they did something that was illegal. They didn't do something that wasn't that was against our policies, but they didn't display our values. And we made those decisions based on that. And that's something that I learned from another person long ago. Is she said, if you're ever having a conflict between two people, she said, find common ground. And she said, you should be able to find that common ground based on the values of the organization. And if both parties can agree on that, then that the chances are good that you'll be able to come to a resolution that both people will agree on.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and all three of you, before we leave this question and move on to the next one, I want to kind of underscore something that you all said, and this might provide some additional information for our participants, because you all spoke to the people, and not only the general importance of people and team, but in particular, you all spoke in one way or another to the idea of strengths and trying to identify and leverage folks' strengths. The research, the data out there actually really supports that. And I'll just share two pieces. One, which is, and this is why I share this, because ideally we want to move the pendulum to the other side. But right now, really about when, and a survey question, and this was a huge study that was done. And so it was, over 100 different organizations, almost 100,000 people asked this question. Do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? Okay? Do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? And surprisingly, only 20% responded favorably to that they did, that they had the opportunity. They either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. So basically 2 in 10 people, 20%, so not the majority. However, when you also look at, because a similar study was done in terms of, okay, now let's look at within an organization, not only performance, but let's also look at engagement. Let's look at workforce engagement. And they found that organizations who focus on fixing weaknesses as opposed to focusing on leveraging strengths, but focusing on fixing weaknesses, about 9% of the workforce is truly engaged. Whereas those organizations that focus on leveraging strengths, identifying and leveraging and aligning the right people in the right seats, those organizations, it goes up to more like 80% are engaged. Now, of course, you're always going to have, because you might wonder, what about that? Those remainder? There's always going to be those, no matter what you do, they're not going to be, really engaged, right? But think about that, from 9% up to almost 80%, it's like 79 point, and change. Pretty huge difference based on whether you're focusing on fixing weaknesses or leveraging strengths. So I just wanted to reinforce what you all three spoke to: importance of people, and in particular, to strengths. And so the research supports you, and it says yes. So I hope we will all consider and keep doing that, and everyone listening will start focusing on those strengths as opposed to fixing weaknesses. All right, let's move on. So next question, I'd love to hear from each of you. What do you believe makes a great leader? What do you believe makes a great leader? Sam, would you mind leading us off on this one?
Yes. Like Lee said earlier, for me, there's several attributes that makes a great leader a leader. First of all, to be able to be a visionary, and the vision, be able to articulate the vision in a way that everybody understands within that organization. So he has to have, besides being a visionary, skillful in articulating their vision, which means decent or good communication skill, able to hone down their communication in such ways that everybody within that organization can understand the vision. They have to be inspiring, obviously, which means create I have my own, I don't know if it's what the dictionary says about inspiring, but inspiring to me is the ability to make sure that people are able to achieve the vision. That vision is not just somewhere out there that we cannot achieve, but that this is an achievable position to accomplish. Also motivating, break down that vision into steps that they can achieve, and they're able to achieve it. That in a way, and of course, motivate them in such way that, whether financially or, just different people get motivated differently. Sometimes people want recognition. Sometimes financial goal would be what they get motivated. So, understand what motivates people and make sure you use that to get them motivated. And sometimes both, obviously, recognition and motivation. So that's really what I think a great leader is.
Awesome, thank you. Either Donna or Favor, who'd like to go next?
Favor, you want to go ahead this time?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I really think the great leader, the foundation part of it is the trust factor. I think great leaders earn trust from the people around them, to do whatever. And then you could have the building block of having the great vision and, clearly communicating, which I think it's so important, having the outcome, which are very important key factors. But I feel like the underlying is the trust factor. And if you don't have that, it's really, really hard to become a leader to begin with, but not a great leader for sure. So I would say earning the trust from others, and that comes in different ways. Maybe your academic background or your professional experience, or maybe your characters, all that I think comes and boils down to trust. It's really hard to say, oh, this is how you earn trust, because human to human, we don't work like A plus, 1 + 1 is 2. Like it doesn't work that way. But, once we build that trust factor, I feel like even the vision, clearly communicating, inspiring them, all that, I think it'll be easier once you have that trust factor underneath all that. So I just wanted to add on to what Sam just said. But yes, the trust factor is key to great leadership.
Trust is huge. And if you're familiar with Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of teams, that's like number one. If you don't have the trust, that's what kind of creates and stimulates the other dysfunctions and brings them to be. So yeah, it's foundational. Thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah, Donna.
Yeah, that both Sam and Favor have said some things that I truly agree with. Trust and having the vision are two very important keys to being successful. The other thing that I think of too is leading by example. No matter what we're doing, no matter where we are, we're always being watched. And we have to remember that we represent that organization. We represent ourselves. We represent potentially our team, and our actions speak much louder than our words. So along with that, if you say that you're going to do something, follow through and do it, because that helps to build the trust that Favor was talking about, because then people know that they can trust you to do what you say you're going to do. The other thing to me is, I mentioned something about, taking ownership. And I know that was also mentioned by Sam and Favor, is that back your team. And, my team knows that no matter what they do, I'm going to support them. Now, we may have a talk afterwards about maybe what happened, but at the same time, like Favor said, they have to trust that you have their back. And you do that, through your behaviors. And another thing that I would say is, be willing to roll up your sleeves. When something is, if maybe there's a tough deadline and you're relying on your team to get it done, if you can help them and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do it with them, that goes a long way in them believing that you really are there for them and you're not just sitting in your office, so to speak, but that you're willing to do whatever it takes to help the team get something done. And one other thing that I would add, Cynthia, and I kind of referenced it earlier, is that a leader helps people understand why we're going in this direction. Like Sam said, you have to have the vision, and Favor said you have to build their trust. And along with that, explain to them why something's being done. That helps them, like I mentioned earlier, for them to buy into it. But rather than them just following us blindly, for them to know why you're taking them in this direction and how it's going to benefit them, how it's going to benefit the organization, whatever that answer is, then you truly are leading by helping them to understand that together we're going to accomplish something.
Yeah. Oh, you've three the kind of the key things you hit on. So Sam talking about that vision and Favor about the trust, and then Donna, you now talking about the making sure they understand the why behind it. The three combined are so powerful, right? And really get people to see how their role. How do I connect to this? That why. How do I connect to this? What does this mean for me? And then if they're clear on that vision that Sam's talking about, they can make that connection, say, okay, I can get on board with this. And if that trust is there, like Favor's saying, then you've got a powerful combination. So awesome. All right, let me give you, and Don, I'm going to ask you to continue and take lead on this next one. So we'll just move forward with you for a moment. This one's kind of potentially a little juicy for you all, okay? Dig in here. What do you think the greatest challenges facing leaders are today? So what's the biggest challenge facing leaders today? There's a lot to potentially work with here. What do you think, Donna?
Oh my goodness, we need a whole class on this one.
Just, it depends on the flavors of the day.
Where do we begin? So all the things I thought of, we could talk about, for a whole hour. So quickly, in a nutshell, I would say in today's society, people are more inquisitive. They don't just take your word for it. So again, that kind of gets back to explain the why. The other thing too is there's so much that gets published. I mean, social media, we never get disconnected. And there's so much that gets put out there, and it's not always true. And just as a side note, this reminds me, years ago, I was interviewing with a CEO, and I think there's certain things I've learned along the way that I always remember. And he said, Donna, he said, if I hire you, I said, I'm not going to ask for your opinion. And when that kind of caught me off guard at first. And he said, we make our decisions based on facts. And that proved to be a very impactful statement, even to this day. And because there is so much that gets published, as leaders, we have to get through all the fluff and get down to what's really true, and to make sure that our team and our staff, whoever that is, that they understand what the facts are. Now, there may be arguments on what the facts are, but again, it's our job to make sure that we're staying true to what really is occurring versus what we think is occurring or what the perception may be. The other things, international influence. I mean, we truly are an international society. No matter what we're doing, there's chances are there's going to be something internationally that could impact our decisions. So we have to be mindful of that. The pace in which we work, again, because we have so much technology at our fingers, there's an expectation that we're going to be moving faster and faster, just because people get more impatient these days. And so we have to balance the expectation with making sure that we truly have the information we need to make decisions, not to the point of analysis paralysis, as we call it, but then being able to make that decision and move on. And a couple more things, generational differences. How my parents responded are much different than what a 23-year-old is going to respond. And yet in this day and age, we may have 4 or 5 generations working under the same roof together. We may have leaders who are half the age of someone that they're leading. And then it gets back to what Favor and Sam said, knowing your people. It just makes for a very different and dynamic organization that just makes it multidimensional.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you hit a lot of potential challenges there.
Just a few. I know there's so many more.
Oh, you hit some great ones, and I love what your CEO said to you, that he's not going to ask for your opinions, but he's going to ask for your facts. I
Right.
like that. Yeah. Management by fact. In this case, leadership by fact. Great. Sam or Favor, who'd like to go next?
I could.
Favor, go ahead.
I could add on to the workforce. Yes, there's generational gap. Also, there's less people to work. I think that's hitting businesses hard nowadays. Finding the right people, finding the people to begin with, and then finding the right people is like a very slim chance. So that's a huge challenge that I see all across different industries and so forth. I'm personally, I'm in the accounting field, and I'm seeing that a lot, where there's not enough accountants that are graduating who are taking CPAs. There's a slimmer people who's taking CPA. So it's a really challenging workforce. So I know everyone's working smarter nowadays, but we have to work smarter somehow. And with the limited workforce, how are you going to make sure that we accomplish what we used to do in the past with the X amount of people? Now with the less amount of people, how are you going to get this done? So that's kind of the challenge out there. And then the other thing is the pace of change is just so fast. And there's a lot of ambiguities, uncertainties out there that leaders are kind of caught off guard a lot of times. I know we don't want to talk about COVID. That's like a no word. But that was a big thing that just came out of nowhere. And nobody had a playbook. Even nowadays, like working from home, hybrid workforce, I mean, those were all still newer to this. So how do we keep up with that pace of change? How do we make sure we, as a leader, regardless of all the situation going on, how do we stay firm and make sure everyone's staying firm as well? That has been a key challenges nowadays.
So true. Thank you. Thank you. Sam, what do you think?
Well, Cynthia, I think what Donna and Favor said it in a particular way of, Donna mentioned where people become victim of misinformation and lose track of truth because they're of social media and they're unfocused somehow. I think, for me, I put one of the biggest challenges is when people pretty much end up losing focus and become just very reactive. They come to work just because they tackle the issues that they deal on a day-to-day. That becomes their job is, and again, I'm talking about I lead leaders. I mean, I'm not my C-suite level versus just the workforce who are just doing the job. The biggest issue with my guys is they end up really become doing the work rather than rising above the clutter and understanding the big picture. They become part of the day-to-day work. They're, people lose just focus. They lose the big picture that we're trying to accomplish. So it's always important to constantly remind people of what is the big picture, what is the core business and goals we're trying to accomplish here. Kind of bring it back to reality a little bit and outside of this just fogginess of just being there and coming to work just and sitting on a desk rather than accomplishing a measurable tasks of things, of issues.
Yeah. So many things that can pull us in so many different directions that are not ultimately going to get us where we want to go, right? So
that's right.
Staying true to course and disciplined on it. It can be a real challenge because we're always being pulled. And there's no lack of distraction, right? So yeah, so true. Wonderful. All right, here is our kind of our last planned questions. So the last one that I want to give you structured, and then we're going to open up after this to our participant questions. So please, everyone, be thinking, what questions do you have? So you can feed them either into the chat or raise a hand, however you want to approach it. But first, let's hear from each of you. And Favor, I'm going to ask you to take lead on this one. What is one piece of advice that you have for those in our audience currently in leadership roles or preparing to be a leader? One piece of advice you have for them.
Yeah, so there is a very popular quote from Jim Rohn. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So my piece of advice is to surround yourself with other leaders that you aspire to be. For example, I used to work for a big accounting firm, and I did not work directly with Jim back then. I was starting off as a staff. He was way up in the leadership role, but I somehow admire that his leadership styles and his demeanors and how he treated others just inspired me. And recently I got reconnected, and he recently retired. So I said, Jim, do you want to grab coffee? And then it has become a regular thing. But maybe it's a mentoring session, or maybe they're out of your reach where you can't reach them. Like maybe they're very popular somebody. Maybe you could read their books. Maybe they are authors, or however you could get closer to the ones that you aspire to be. Surround and spend much time around them. It'll be so worth it.
That is such a great quote. Can you say that one more time?
Yes, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, from Jim Rohn.
That's really good. That is really good. Yeah, thanks, Favor. Donna, Sam, who'd like to go next?
Well, I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, me
Thank you,
too.
favor. On a similar note, she said, surround yourself with key people. My recommendation is find mentors. And oftentimes we might have one, someone will say, do you have a mentor? I believe in having more than one, because you can learn that one mentor may not have all the strengths that you aspire to have or that that you need to have. And that puts a lot of burden on that one mentor. But if you have a team of mentors who you can learn something from each one of them and take those nuggets and apply them to yourself, that's huge. And I have been very fortunate to have mentors along the way that have really made a difference. And if I can add a 1B to this, learn from leaders who you didn't think were good leaders. I mentioned earlier where we can learn from our mistakes. I'm sure we've all had a leader that said, I am never going to be like that person. And that's something too that you can take away to say, I'm making a commitment to myself and to my team and whoever I work with, that's not something that I will do. So that way you can learn from those folks as well as the mentors that you really admire.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it reminds me when you say that, because it's so true. We can not only learn from the good examples, but we can learn from who we view as a not so good example, right?
Mhm.
And think about parenting. Don't we always grow up saying, oh, I'm never going to parent the same way, my parents did. I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do it better, right? And then if we're not very intentional, what do we end up doing? We end up doing exactly what our parents had done. We kind of fall into that same. So same thing here with leaders. If we're, if there are role models, and if our role models, we've had some that weren't so good, unless we're very intentional and learn from that and recognize what we can do differently, we might slide back into that. So yeah, great point. Great point.
Intentional is a good word. Be intentional.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. Any other thoughts on that one?
If I want to add one more thing, I think is make sure that you have goals that are clear in nature, that not only clear, but also almost create a timeline, a roadmap to how to accomplish those goals. So the clarity on the goals, clarity on how do I accomplish those goals, and make sure that people within your organization understand and they have the same, what is their individual goals and how are they able to accomplish their goals. So just to me, that's one of the most important and critical things that I like to provide to my organization as a leader.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you. We're now going to go into more of a free flow discussion with our participants. So welcome participants. Thanks for listening to our conversation so far. Now we want you to be a part of it. So think about those questions. I see one that we've got in the chat. I'll get to that one in just a moment. If you have any other questions, please chime in. I'll also be watching for hands being raised, which I see we've got a hand raised also, so we'll get to that in just a moment as well. So now's the time for you to ask all the things that you want to know so that we can address your questions and make sure this is the best use of your time possible. So here's what's in the chat. Let's go there first, and then I'll go to the hand raised. So keep your hand raised so I can find you in a moment. All right, it is it says, hello, Professor St. John. Thank you for the panel discussion today. You are welcome. Thank you to our panelists. They're awesome, right? It was very helpful information. Yay. Do the panelists have any book recommendations on leadership or business topics they would like to share? Thank you for that question, Eric.
I have one. I have to get the author. Because I have it close by. This one is not something that I don't think anyone would expect, but it really made an impact on me. And it's called Brief. BRIEF.
Okay.
And it's by Joseph McCormack, MCCORMACK. It says, make a bigger impact by saying less. And this made a real impact on me by basically getting to the point. You know, we'll hear people talk and they just go on and on and on. It's like, okay, get to the point. And this is a great book that it allows you to be succinct and learn to be succinct and get your point across, where then you really are heard because you remove all the unnecessary noise.
Love it. Good one. Good one. I need to read that book. I can certainly benefit from being more concise. And it's something that I try to teach my students as well and have them practice even in their homework assignments, is being clear and complete while being very concise. And they get page limits in terms of their responses and assignments. So good. Love that book. Thanks. Sam, Favor, any recommended books from you?
Obviously, I'm going to write the book that Donna just mentioned, because that is an absolute great point that she mentioned. To me, I'm currently reading, a book what maybe a lot of people have read in the past, but it's about Steve Jobs, his biography, and I'm listening to an audio book, so every time I'm on a long road trip. But to me, reading someone that has proven to be a success, his life, what made him who he is, it creates this mental mentorship of why do these people have accomplished what they've accomplished? What is the traits that they've got that enabled them to become who they are? So to me, that's, I recommend that book. It's just a great book. But in general, there's a lot of great leaders out there, whether maybe Elon Musk or others, depending on how people feel about them. But they didn't get where they are, not being great leaders. And they wouldn't have led such an organization that they've built if they were not visionary, and they have things that we all can learn from. So I definitely would recommend Steve Jobs or any book that of someone that you guys aspire to or admire or respect.
Excellent. Thanks. Favor, any from you?
Yes, I can share one that I'm currently reading. It's called The Beginner's Pluck. Not luck, pluck, P-L-U-C-K. It's by Liz Bohannon. She's a social economic impact entrepreneur. It's a great reminder. Like, I'm not going to be the spoiler, but like one thing that popped out is dream small. Like, you hear usually dream big, get a vision and all that. Her thing is dream small, make it happen. Like, do something about it. Don't just dream. It's not going to get you anywhere. So it was a really great reminder for me where whenever I think vision, it's like so grand and something I can't even achieve, but it was more in a bite-sized themes that she put in together. So it was a great reminder. So The Beginner's Pluck, I would recommend that. I love short things, so articles, blogs. So Cynthia, I see in the background you have Harvard Business Review. I love it. The most recent one that I saw, the article, was around FOPO, F-O-P-O. I didn't even know that was a thing, but fear of other people's opinion. So how to overcome that. And so it was a great reminder. I find so many insights through that short read. So I will recommend Harvard Business Review. I'm sure there's a lot more out there too, but even just a short snippets, just to make sure you're in the right path, your right direction. It's a great reminder.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll throw a couple in as well before we move on to, we'll go next. We've got a hand raised. We'll go there in a moment. And then we've got another question from the chat. But I recommend, first of all, if given this topic is on transformational leadership, if anyone wants more information on transformational leadership, BASS, B-A-S-S, is really the go-to resource for that. So look up pretty much any work from BASS on transformational leadership, and you're going to get some great content. I would also recommend If you want some additional information on strengths, since we talked about strengths, Marcus Buckingham is the author there. So he's got a variety of, he's got books as well as articles. So you can just Google strengths and Marcus Buckingham and a variety of things will come up. And then I also mentioned reference to Patrick Lencioni. Well, I mentioned Lencioni in the 5 Dysfunctions of Teams earlier. So it's Patrick Lencioni. And really pretty much anything by Patrick Lencioni. He has got, so not only 5 Dysfunctions of Teams, but he has a book called The Advantage. He's got just a variety. He not only is his content spot on, but his style is also very readable and very enjoyable. So those are some additional recommendations. So thank you, panel. Let's go to, and let's see, Mary Beth, can you unmute, or maybe I can unmute on my own. We've got Jared. Who knows? Let me see if I can unmute you. Can I do it?
I just took care of it. Can you hear me?
Oh, well, there you did it yourself. All right, thank you. So,
Cool.
what's your question, please?
So first, I just want to thank you guys for spending the time with us and sharing some great wisdom. My question is, so maybe you come to a new organization or it's a new leadership role and maybe you're rocking the boat a little bit. So what are some tactics that you would or have employed in the past to gain some more buy-in from your followers that may be already a little bit on the offensive against you? And then maybe the second one, which is probably the most difficult for hard leaders, is when do you have those hard conversations and then start thinking about it's time to cut someone if they still don't turn around? Thanks so much.
Good question. Thanks, Jared. Who wants to start there?
I'll start, Jared. Those are great questions. I have experienced both. And yeah, I have gone into new roles several times in my career and typically see opportunities to make changes. And what I try to do first is to understand why things are being done the way they're being done. I always say there's a reason for everything. It may not be a good reason, but there's a reason. So to understand why things are being done, first of all, it avoids me from walking off the cliff, like I mentioned earlier, but it also helps to understand where people are coming from, what their mindset is. And they may not know what they don't know. And oftentimes I've discovered this, especially if a group of people or an individual was used to doing things a certain way, and this is how they've always done it. And I see that we can make it better. We can make it faster, more efficient, whatever it may be. And I often I kick off conversations with, help me understand the reason for us doing such and such. So I'll use us to say, okay, we're going to be doing this together. I also learned a long time ago not to start off with a question with why. Why puts people on the defensive as a general rule. So what I attempt to do is ask the why by saying, help me understand. And then truly understand, and then say, have you ever thought, has there ever been any discussion about so-and-so? So you just kind of start planting those seeds for them to start thinking of ways how it could be done differently rather than you're doing it to them. If they, like we always know, if someone thinks that it's their idea, they're going to think it's a great idea. So, to be able to give them questions for them to start thinking differently, that helps. And I do remember though, one time, long time ago, I was talking to one of my employees and she was doing something on an Excel spreadsheet. And I said something about, using the system to do it. And she said, Donna, she said, you're trying to work me out of a job. And I said, no. I said, what I'm attempting to do is eliminate something that's very redundant and give you time to think. I said, because you are a great thinker and you come up with great ways to do things. And I want you to have more time to do that. So by, and again, what I learned in that brief interaction was I didn't give her the why. So if I had said, I'd really like to do this so that you can do this, or you can take on more responsibilities, or so that you can do such as whatever's important to her, like we talked about earlier, you have to know what motivates someone, what's important to them. So that would be one thing. And then on the hard conversations, it kind of gets back to, like we were talking about earlier, doing the facts. Make sure, number one, though, that people understand their job. They may think that they're doing it the way you want them to do it or how they're supposed to do it. So don't jump to conclusions, because oftentimes either people don't understand what's their job, or they didn't get the proper training. But if you can eliminate those two things and they still aren't doing it, say, this is the expectation of the job. And then let them say why they can't or won't do it. But you never compromise the standards and say, well, okay, what if we did this? Give them the opportunity to improve. But at some point, if it's just not working, say, this is the job, and these are the results. And I just don't think it's a good fit. And if you can find another job for them internally, great. If not, then if that time comes where you do have to let them go, you've had those conversations to where it will not be a surprise. They still may not like it, but you've gone through the steps to help them get where they need to be. But if they're not motivated to do it, then there's not much you can do about that.
Great advice from a chief HR officer.
Great point.
Favor,
Just to ask
Sam.
you, yeah, just to add a few things to what Donna just said. I think any kind of change, whether you're rocking the boat or rocking the world, I mean, any kind of change is a disruption, and people get offensive to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think if you could answer the question of what's in it for you or me, the value that whatever that change or disruption, the reason why you're rocking the boat, how will that be beneficial to the other person? If you could somehow convey that message, I think it's easier to get buy-in. Not saying everyone's going to buy into it, but I think once they see the value and what's in it for me, there is a greater chance that they will jump into that boat. The other thing, I know we mentioned about strength in a different context, but I think focusing on the people who want to see the change, who wants to be in your side of making that change, work with those. If you're in a position where you could somehow pick and choose the folks that you work with, bring a team together, I would say focus more energy on bringing those that are willing to change and be excited for what you're trying to do than trying to drag the other people from the other side and make them come halfway. I think is so much better of use in time if the situation allows.
Thanks, Favor. Sam, anything you want to add in here?
I think they've covered it pretty good. Just one thing to add to Donna is, often people are a little hostile to you when you come to a new organization because they don't understand your role. They may think that you're competing with their role. So obviously, like Donna said, is to understand and talk to them, understand their role and yours, and how they're not competing. If they are somehow, if there's an overlap, make sure that that's understood. To make sure that that overlap is removed, and you're in a way helping them succeeding in their position and accomplishing their job. So usually a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding within that organization that needs to be clarified correctly. And when do you get rid of someone is when you give them enough training and they understand their job pretty good, and what it takes for them to do what's good and what's bad. What's the good attributes, what's the bad attributes, what's a good job, what's a bad job. People understand that, and they still insist on not doing a good job. Then that's the time when you need to part, to let them go.
Great input. Thank you. And thank you for the question, Jared. And a resource for you that might be helpful if you were talking about books and articles earlier. If you are leading pretty wide scale change, you might want to check out Cotter. John Cotter, and he has an 8-step model of change, which is very effective, especially if you're trying to lead transformational change, not just kind of small incremental, but of course, transformational leaders tend to lead transformational change, drive big change. And so, so the Cotter model might be a helpful tool for you. All right, with that, we've got another question in the chat from Martha. Thank you, Martha, and hello, Martha. How do you motivate your people when monetary compensation is not an option? Who wants to lead off on that one?
I will. Usually, recognition. If monetary compensation is not recognition, it's making sure. Most people, I found out, they want to do a good job, but sometimes they really don't understand it, and they don't understand what is good job. So, creating that clarity on the way they perform their job, and if they perform it in such way, then they're done a great job. And if they didn't, understanding that, help them do a good job first, and then second, recognize that, making sure that others know that they've done a good job. Usually that's one of the best, or if not the most motivating factor for people to know. They want to be recognized by their bosses and by their other fellow employees, that they're contributing to the benefit of the company or the organization they're part of.
Good. Donna, our favor.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think Sam makes a great point, because sometimes people want to be recognized, and how do they want to be recognized? Individually, in front of others. The other thing too is to find out what motivates them. I believe that motivation really comes from within. So what is it that they're passionate about? What do they really want to do? And it may not be the job that they're doing. So that's maybe what's demotivating them. But having said that, can you motivate them by saying, I know you really want to do this, but right now we need to do plan A versus plan B, or project A versus project B. But once we get that done, then I think that we're going to be able to get you, other responsibility or something like that. If that's not possible, then perhaps what they're really good at, like we've been talking about, their strengths, if you can find a committee or a project or something that this person can be a part of that allows them to really demonstrate and utilize their strengths, that will then motivate them to do a better job. I much believe in giving someone the carrot versus the stick to get someone to be motivated. But you have to find out, what motivates them, and what is it that's keeping them from being motivated now. Maybe it's an obstacle. Maybe they feel frustrated. Maybe they feel like they can't get the job done because someone else is in the way. I mean, you just never know. So to try to then back up and find the root cause that's keeping them from being motivated, then you might be able to help them from that perspective as well.
Great, thanks. Favor, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. So adding on to Donna's point about what motivates them, getting to know what really motivates them and trying to focus on those. I could give a live example where one of my colleagues, her name is Casey, she's in the tax side. So nothing to do with business development, but she was very intrigued by business development. But her main role is tax. So when it's busy season, you have to roll up your sleeve and do the tax returns. But what we've done is we've been creative and carve out a little bit of time when it's not so busy so that she could actually build into her schedule of 1 or 2 hours of business development. So whether that's going to a networking event or building relationship with referral sources, whatever that is, we were able to carve out that time and respect it. I think that's another key too. You can't say, oh, we'll do this for you, and you don't follow through. That's a really big no-no. But we were actually able to do that. So she understands that during busy season, it's focused 100% or 150% on tax. But when it's a slower season, she has the ability to make up her own schedule where we decided 1 or 2 hours a week, this is your time where you could focus on business development. And she's been going above and beyond in the business development as well, on top of the tax side of things. So I think there's creative ways where you could find, but going back to Donna's comment, I think it's really important to know what really motivates them. And if money's not able, like that's not one of the options, how else could we help you? Because we really want to work with you. How can we help you to be successful here in this organization?
Awesome. Thank you all. And great question. Thank you for the question as well. And it
Thank you.
really ties to, because there are on the academic side, and we won't get in too much to the academic side, but there's the transformational leadership has the 4 I's, what they refer to as the 4 I's, right? And it kind of separates transactional leaders from true transformational leaders. And one of those I's is individualized consideration. And that's really exactly what this is talking about, is getting to know your folks and getting to know what matters most to them. And trying to then give them that as the motivation when it's not always financial. And for some people, for instance, it's learning. They love going to conferences. They'd much rather go to be selected to go to a conference opportunity or some type of special workshop or event. Love that just as much, in some cases more, I don't know, individual, but more than money. You never know, right? So even if you can't give them money, you can give them things that are equally and in some cases more intrinsically rewarding to them. So that's that individualized consideration. So great responses. Thanks. All right, we still have a few minutes left before I know folks need to take off for 1 o'clock meetings and classes. Any remaining questions? So you can either raise your hand or you can put something in the chat. Let me go back and make sure I'm looking at the chat. See if anything pops up. And earlier I saw Dr. Prater pop up. Are you still with us, Dr. Prater? I know you always have a thought or a question or something. So if you're still here, feel free to chime in. And if anyone else has any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you as well.
I am, and actually, I was just saying a thing because there's some latest data out in terms of, as instructors, we have to be leaders as well in trying to get our students to push themselves, to try and take risks, etc. But post-COVID, you're talking about a totally different mindset for a lot of these young people and the like. So I would just be curious to get your insights in terms of, us as instructors leading these students into taking risks, thinking outside the box, or as I try and get across to them as a business professor, to think of themselves not as a student, but as a corporation of one, that everything that they learn in these classes, the first thing they need to be thinking is applying it to themselves. What is their strategy? What are their strengths and weaknesses? How are they going to manage a budget, etc.? But I'd just be interested to see your inputs.
Great. Thank you. What do y'all think?
Totally agree. Because it gets back to, if if someone says, I have a job for you. Okay, it may be a job, but is it really what you want to do? And that's where it may be very, very tempting to say yes to it just so that you can have something. Now, of course, if from a financial standpoint, you really don't have a choice, that's one thing. But if you do have that ability to really discern, is this what's going to get you where you want to be? And you really don't believe so, then turn it down. Having said that, though, what I would also recommend is you're going to be, or you should be, networking with your colleagues when you start looking for a position. And if it's not the right thing for you, but you know someone who might be a good fit, and you recommend that person to that company, they're going to remember you. And so then when something else comes along, you might get another phone call.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Sam, Favor, any thoughts on this one?
One of the things I think the gentleman spoke about is taking risk, is telling people, getting people to allow them to understand that taking risk is part of success, that taking risk sometimes mean I may succeed, but I may also fail. But failure usually is a learning experience. This is not a fatal experience. if it is used correctly as an educational, why did I fail? What did I do wrong? How could I not make this mistake again? So usually it's a learning experience. So when you take a risk, or the reason why sometimes people don't take a risk is because of the fear of failing. And if they understand that failing is part of life, it's a learning experience, that as long as they're not gambling with the house and the farm and all the cows, that's okay. They're gonna survive. That life will go on. They just need to take on the new role and move on. So taking a risk is a big part of success in life. And that means you got to be decisive in making decisions. You can't just stay for a very long time hang around. Should I do this or that? Sometimes both options will work. Sometimes both options will lead to success. One is less success than other. You don't know, but just take the decision, make the decision quick. Don't just stay on the sideline and life will move on.
Yep. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, I would like to add on to that. I truly believe transformation starts within you. So even if you're a team of one, if you don't work out your transformation muscle, being able to be flexible around the changes and thinking outside the box, creating a vision, seeing the vision and all that, if you don't believe in yourself and if you don't have transformation within you, it's going to be really hard to be a transformational leader. I think every leadership starts within you, then it exudes to other people, like you inspire others through it. But I think first and foremost, it's really about me inside. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all. And thank you, Dr. Prater, for that question. And in fact, it actually touches directly on another one of the 4 I's of transformational. It's intellectual stimulation. This idea of challenging ourselves and others to think differently and to take intelligent risks and to experiment, try things. And so it's another core aspect of transformational leadership and what we do as transformational leaders. And interestingly enough, I had the opportunity to participate in a group discussion within the last week or two of area business leaders. And asking them questions about, what matters most to you in terms of our graduates. What do you most look for? What do you most need? Or what themes or trends are you seeing? And the one that popped up immediately is we need them to be more curious. We need, we seem to, somewhere along the line, folks seem to be losing their sense of curiosity and really being willing to explore things and try things and do things differently and take those intelligent risks. So that came up as a key discussion point. And interestingly enough, so for those of you who are participants, this could be something that sets you apart, even when you're either in a job and you want to succeed or in interviews, because that notion of curiosity is also recently, and talking about my HBR books back here, some articles have been popping up about one thing that really differentiates the average leader from kind of high performing leaders is the high performing ones tend to have that sense of curiosity and tend to bring that into the workplace. So there's a nice theme here to kind of dig into, and if you really want to take it to the next level, this is an opportunity scenario. All right, I think we've got another question in our chat. Let me get back over to it. All right, here we go. This from Eric. Thank you, Eric. It says, have the panelists participated in any professional organizations where they gave back to their profession? Examples might include American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, American Marketing Association. If yes, did your service experience help to build your careers? So
I can jump on that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, AICPA for sure. So I've been involved with a lot of different accounting organizations, including American Institute, as well as state level Texas CPA and Dallas chapter as well. Through just volunteering my time and resources, I've learned so many different leaderships. I could see myself growing into the leadership position. I could also see who's the good leader and not so great leader, and learning from both sides. I think it's a really great way to kind of test the water, because maybe some of you are students who are attending this event. So maybe you don't have a professional experience working somewhere yet. But if you volunteer in an organization, it's a great way to learn leadership, because all that you could pretty much bring into the corporate settings when it comes to leadership. Because it's a nonprofit versus profit, it really doesn't change much. It's more of how you really build up that leadership and be able to be flexible to use it in different many ways. So I would highly recommend getting involved with different organizations, take leadership roles, and learn your leadership styles, tweak it as you go every day, and become a better leader.
Thanks, Favor.
Mm-hmm.
Donna or Sam, anything you'd like to add on here about your participation in professional organizations?
Yes, I participate, or I volunteer for the Dallas HR Association. I've been affiliated with them for let's just say a very, very long time. And they also sponsor a conference every year. And I have volunteered for that conference and was actually the executive director for the conference several years ago. And they've always been volunteer positions. And yes, I learn something every time. And for example, I help teach a certification class through the Dallas HR Association. I volunteer my time. And every time I do that, someone asks me a question that I may not know the answer to. And I'll say, let me find out, let me get that for you. And that always enables me to learn, which always then helps me to, I wouldn't say always, but quite often helps me to apply to my current role. And then with the HR conference, Favor made an excellent point. If you take on a leadership role, not only are you going to be, you'll surround yourself with really good people, because everyone who volunteers, they're doing it because they want to. So no one is making them do any of this. So keep that in mind. You are surrounding yourself with other leaders because they are raising their hand. And by doing so, you make helps you with great networking opportunities. And how you apply that to your role is that you may find yourself needing something, and you remember meeting Sally, who was an expert in this, or she knew someone who knew someone. And then it helps you to bring solutions to your position and to your organization. And it's just personally satisfying too.
Yeah. Great point about networking, and you never know how those connections can benefit you and them now and in the future. Sam, any final thoughts from you? We've got just a couple minutes left, and then we're at the end of our time. So let me give you final words, and then I'll close us out.
Well, thank you. I mean, we can always volunteer in different events. I'm obviously a board member of different organizations, whether it's a chamber of commerce or different corporations. I think the fact that we're here speaking to students, is part of this effort of volunteering to speak to help people and also learn from others how to become a better leader, and how to become transformative leader. But for students, obviously, my daughter goes to UTA Austin. Not Arlington, but I try to keep her to stay here, but obviously she wants to stay away from the family, so she went to Austin. But she's in different organizations, student body organization, and to me, that's something that any student can always participate. There's a ton of organizations that they could be part of, and learn how to transform that organization to the next level.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we have 1 minute left, and we did have one final question show up in the chat. So I'll ask it quickly, and then if you can each take like 20 seconds and give you your kind of a bullet response. This one is about remote or virtual work environments. The question is, when I think of transformational leadership, I tend to think of interpersonal relationships and personalized motivation for the team. How can transformational leadership effectively manage and lead teams in remote or virtual work environments? So just a couple seconds each. Any popcorn thoughts?
I would say to utilize what we're doing here with teams and make it intentional, not just, hey, I have a quick question, but dedicate time to the team and dedicate time to those individuals so that you can really stay attached.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Echo on the intentionality. I think it's so important, especially when you're in a remote setting. I think you have to do it more often and more frequently, just so you could connect and be together as a team.
Great, thanks. Sam, any final thoughts on this one?
I frankly, I'm not a big fan of business organization to constantly stay on teams. I always require in-person teams, so that interpersonal communication is very, very valuable. However, what I learned from teams is often, more than not, a lot of my conference calls that I used to do just over the phone, right now it's a Zoom call, because I see the value of looking people in the eyes and just talking to them, and so yes, there's with COVID, conducting business as usual means that even your regular phone calls right now has more value when you talking to people over Zoom rather than over the phone. So
yeah,
I see lots of value in that.
All right, thank you. We are at our time, so I want to take this time to thank everyone for attending today's panel, and especially to thank the panelists for sharing their valuable insights with us. I think it's clear based on the conversation, they are bright, distinguished individuals who have a lot to share. So thank you for your time, your interest, your energy, all that you do for us at UTA and for this particular panel. With that, and let me also thank for the Dean's Office for coordinating this, and Mary Beth Finley in particular, for helping with these efforts. There are many more events throughout the week. This is Business Week, so hope you will take advantage of those events, and I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their week. Thank you all. Thank you again, panelists. You all were fantastic. Really appreciate you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I like the little video clip that's posted in the chat. Cute. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.